I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime, and this is Currents.
5 months after the devastating earthquake, a gathering of Haitians from around the country.
In response to the earthquake, there has been a very beautiful show of worldwide international solidarity.
He's all over Brooklyn and Queens. We'll meet a man who explores the city of churches. And the fast is over, but these New Yorkers continue their call for immigration reform.
No hablo español, but I can say the immigration policy is mucho, mucho malo.
Well, good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. It's been 5 months since a massive earthquake devastated the mostly Catholic island nation of Haiti. And the head of humanitarian work at the UN says he's frustrated with the slow progress getting shelter for the country's homeless.
Meanwhile, back in this country, Haitian Catholics from all over are getting set to meet this weekend at Hofstra University on Long Island. It's the annual convention of the National Center of the Haitian Apostolate. And the director of that apostolate is none other than Brooklyn Auxiliary Bishop Guy Sansaric, the very first Haitian American bishop.
He is, and he visited Haiti right after the earthquake, and he's been keeping a close eye on things since then. I had the chance to sit down with him yesterday. Bishop Guy, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Greetings to you and to all who are listening.
Of course, we're talking today about the convention that's coming up out on Long Island. It's going to be the 28th annual convention for the National Center of the Haitian Apostolate. You're the leader of that particular group. Tell me about the convention that's coming up.
Well, before I speak about the convention,
Sure.
we would probably speak about the center, because Haitians began to arrive in this country in larger numbers since the 1970s. And at this point, they were scattered all over the country, mostly on the east coast, and there were very few Haitian priests who could reach out to them. Right. So we were a handful of priests in those days. So it was important for the priests to come together so that we could exchange, pray together, and kind of study the situation and devise the best pastoral approach and fulfill the mandate of the gospel.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And this year, I understand the kind of the theme of the whole thing is going to be about the priesthood, but not so much maybe only what people think when they think about the priesthood. Not only someone wearing a collar, but someone wearing maybe something like this as well. Tell me a little bit about the priesthood and what's going to be talked about.
Well, traditionally in the church, we talk about the common priesthood of the people, because we are a priestly people. That means a people who can approach God. God is not inaccessible, because the concept of priesthood in the Old Testament was that only the priest could approach God. You remember when Moses was on the mountain, it was prescribed that anyone, or even if an animal, should come close to the mountain, it should be stoned to death. Yeah. So only Moses could go to the mountain. But at the moment, we all go to the mountain and meet the Lord, the common priesthood of the people. And within the priesthood of the people, then you have the ministerial priesthood at the service of the people.
Of course, this is the first convention, as you mentioned. It's the 28th annual, but it is the first one since the earthquake that happened back in January.
That is correct. The Haitian community, and I may say the whole world, have been quite shocked by what took place in Haiti, the devastation of that country by this horrendous earthquake that took place on January 12th of this year. And so we will address a particular issue. In response to the earthquake, there has been a very beautiful show of worldwide international solidarity. Yes. More than 100 different groups have gone to the site. And in a way, there are three levels of risk. First, there is the emergency response to provide people with food, with clothes, and with shelter, which already was a nightmare.
Right.
And of course, medical attention. And then now I think they are beginning to move into the midterm stage where, for instance, they have to clear the sites, especially for the schools and the churches and the hospitals and the institutions, and then provide temporary shelter because the people cannot simply live in tents, and the tents are very inadequate, especially that we are coming close to the hurricane season.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know, when the winds catch up with the tents, the tents fly away.
Absolutely.
And the rains of the rainy season that produce sometimes floods, and that's very inconvenient for people who live in tents. So there will be some transitory dwellings that will be built, and then we have the long term, and I'm afraid that it's kind of a slow pace to come to the long term response. That means rebuilding roads and revamping the agriculture, creating jobs. And then once you create jobs, the people will develop the country. But we cannot remain in a permanent stage of mendicity where, in order to survive, we depend on international charity. So I think the long-term stage is very, very essential to the future of the country.
Well, we'll of course remember Haiti in our prayers as we always do.
Thank you.
We'll of course be praying for you as well as you get ready to take part in this convention, the 28th annual convention for the
this weekend.
National Center for the Haitian Apostolate. Well,
Yes.
Bishop Guy, we thank you so much for joining us. We are just all out of time, but we thank you so much for being here today, and we look forward to having you again.
Thank you. Thank you very much. God bless you all.
Well, Brooklyn Auxiliary Bishop Guy Sansaric there. The convention of the National Center of the Haitian Apostolate takes place this Friday through Sunday at Hofstra University out on Long Island. Posted some more information up on our blog, and you can get complete details there. Just go to currentsny.net.
Always nice to talk with him. But stay tuned, there's much more current straight ahead. When we return, we'll have the day's headlines, including the city's tallest building making its biggest mistake, perhaps, the controversy surrounding its decision not to honor Mother Teresa. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Francesca Maxime.
And I'm Matt McClure. Coming up later, an update on the group of New Yorkers who participated in a religious fast as part of a call for immigration reform.
But first, let's turn to the day's headlines. As the church prepares to mark the end of the year for priests, protesters gathered at the Vatican today to call for changes to the priesthood. The Survivors Network of Those Abused by Priests, or SNAP, held a press conference in Rome today and called on Pope Benedict to publicly apologize for clergy sex abuse at the closing ceremonies of the year for priests. Now, SNAP leaders said they also want the pontiff to pledge that any priest who abuses a child would be immediately removed from the priesthood. And also a second group, the Women's Ordination Conference, they marched on the Vatican and called on church leadership to open discussion on letting women join the priesthood. Elsewhere in Italy, the government in the northern region of Lombardy will begin offering economic assistance to low-income women who give birth. As we hear now from Rome Reports, the goal of the policy is to cut down on the number of abortions in the region.
In an effort to prevent abortion, the Italian region of Lombardy is offering money to pregnant women from low-income families. The region's health department says the majority of women choose abortion because of economic hardship. Women who go to abortion clinics for consultations will be presented with the option of accepting a check prior to having an abortion. The Lombardy government will offer monthly payments of €250 for up to 18 months to needy women who give birth. This means a woman who changed her mind about having an abortion because of financial troubles would receive €4,500 a year to help support new life. About 128,000 abortions are performed in Italy each year, and the Italian birth rate is at an all-time low, with 1.32 children born per woman, far from the rate of 2.1 needed to maintain a stable population.
And in Denmark, a bishop says that he will ask the Vatican to investigate the suspicious circumstances surrounding a nun's death in 1993. The nun suffered from dementia and reportedly died after being locked in a garden on a cold morning. Two former sisters told police last week that the woman who died was regularly mistreated by others at her convent. Reports say a police investigation could lead to criminal charges against the local bishop because he may have known about the circumstances surrounding the nun's death since 2001.
Well, Israeli archaeologists say they have uncovered a large cache of rare religious artifacts predating Christianity. Scientists say the artifacts are 3,500 years old and were once used in pagan rituals. The 100 or so items were discovered by members of the Israel Antiquities Authority near the route of a new gas line. Archaeologists say some of the vessels were used to carry precious liquids from place to place, others used to burn incense. The Israeli government plans to put the artifacts on display later this year. And finally, when you think of Catholic League President Bill Donahue and New York City Council Speaker Christy Quinn, you probably don't imagine the two agree on many issues. But when it comes to lighting up the Empire State Building in honor of Mother Teresa, they see eye to eye. Owners of the iconic building recently denied the Catholic League's request to shine blue and white lights on the tower on August 26th in honor of Mother Teresa's 100th birthday. The New York Daily News reports that denial by the owners prompted outrage from Donahue. Quinn said Monday the building should be lit because Mother Teresa was a wonderful woman who gave the world so much.
Well, stay tuned. There's much more Currents coming up.
Just ahead, he's been all around the city of churches, and he stops by our studio in Brooklyn.
We actually go inside the church and we meet the priest and we take a tour. So we discover things about the church that people may not know.
Welcome back. Well, last night we kicked off our series of interviews about the Nets' new season by delving into some of the mysteries of the church. And tonight we take you right inside some of the churches themselves.
Indeed. Nick Vavas spends a lot of his time on the road visiting historic houses of worship in Brooklyn and Queens. And in the middle of his travels last week, he stopped by here. Not exactly historic, but anyway. He spoke with our Natalia Ortiz about his series called City of Churches.
Nick, thank you so much for being with us today. Welcome to the show.
Natalia, thank you. This is great. My first time here.
I know. So City of Churches, tell us what the show is about and why you think people should watch.
The show is about, we profile various churches in the Brooklyn Diocese, and we actually go inside the church and we meet the priest and we take a tour. So we discover things about the church that people may not know, and we learn about the neighborhood. So the church itself, a lot of them reflect their neighborhoods. So you're going to see not only the inside of the church and some of the secrets, we're going to see the neighborhoods themselves and the immigrant populations and how important that is to the neighborhood. So I personally learned a lot about Astoria and a lot of the different areas in the diocese that I didn't know, and a lot of history. So it's going to be very exciting.
Well, good. Tell us about these little secrets. I just kind of clung on to that word once you mentioned.
Well, that's another show, Mysteries of the Church, I believe. But, secrets in that, anecdotes, let's say that. So one church off the top of my head was Regina Pacis. And Monsignor Marino explained how there were these crown jewels. They were adorned with diamonds and very expensive. So much money that he mentioned the number and I can't remember. And one day, many years ago, they disappeared. They were locked up in a case somewhere behind the altar. No one could get into it except for himself and I believe another priest. So one day they disappeared. And it was a big deal, obviously, to the parish and to the church. Several years later, for whatever reason, however it happened, they reappeared. And when Monsignor Marino talks about that, he's got such, it's so emphatic and he's so excited and passionate about the whole thing because it was miraculous according to him. There was no reason for it. Nothing preceded it. I'm guessing he didn't embellish about the story because he's a priest. But, that's one example of something, when he told me the story, he was so excited and enthusiastic about it. And it's pretty incredible. It's one of those.
That is incredible. Now, do the parishes or do the churches themselves vary in style or at all throughout the different neighborhoods that you go through? I mean, is there something particular that maybe stands out in certain neighborhoods?
They do, and again, it's based on the parish and the immigrant population. So when a population first comes into a neighborhood, let's say, hundreds of years ago, when people immigrated from Europe for religious persecution, whatever reasons, depending on their trade and the money they had, they could develop a church with so many resources. So, and that was sort of the beginning, as well as the style. So the Germans had their own style. The Italians had their own style. Okay. So kind of developing based on that ethnic group, that was the style they developed. And there's one church in particular that came out of something completely different structurally, and that was St. Sebastian's in Woodside. So the story goes that many years ago, there was a small parish that was St. Sebastian's, and then the 1950s comes along, and TV was a big deal, exploded. Well, that sort of put a big dent in movie theater population. So in Woodside, there was a giant theater, a Lowe's theater, which they had to close. So St. Sebastian's comes along and buys the theater. Now, a theater is a gigantic box-shaped auditorium. They transformed the auditorium into the lobby or the entrance to the theater. And when you walk in, there's auditorium seating and everything about it, like projection booths. It's really incredible.
I do know the church you're talking about because I did a story there for a few months ago. And you're absolutely right. I didn't even know that. It looks exactly like a theater, and it makes total sense what you're saying. That's very interesting, the history, the stories that you can tell from all of this. So you've obviously learned so much from doing the show.
Definitely. I really did.
Yeah. So how many seasons has it been going on for?
This is season 2, and we did 12 churches last season and 12 this season. Okay. And this year's a bit different. It's stylized a bit differently.
Okay, how so?
We have more detail inside the church. We go into more detail. And in the neighborhoods themselves, we do a little more digging into the history. In terms of history, there's so much to know about Astoria. There's 3 churches in Astoria, which I had no idea that we profile. So we delve more into the neighborhood part of it, which to me is very interesting.
Yeah, I'm sure the neighborhood always, I'm sure, reflects the church and vice versa, right?
Exactly.
So, well, it's a shame we don't have more time to talk, Nick, but thank you so much for joining us.
You are so welcome.
And I hope that your viewers will catch City of Churches.
Tuesday, 8 o'clock, and then again at 11 o'clock, I believe. So
wonderful.
Very exciting.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Natalia.
It's like a never-ending thing. Like they're just going to be going forever with that show because there's so much history in the churches of Brooklyn and Queens. You know,
it's true. And I remember that when I was in Italy researching and writing for a travel guide called Let's Go Italy, my mom came to visit me when I was in Italy for a few months, and she wanted to go into every single church that there was on every corner. It didn't matter. There was a wedding going on. There might have been a funeral. There might have been in the middle of Mass. The point being is that there are so many things that, you know, are inside of a church for, you know, any given reason. Each one has so much history that is very rich. So
absolutely, and especially here in Brooklyn and Queens, as we talked about the City of Churches. I mean, it's just amazing, and there's so much that you can learn in one single parish as well. And I'm glad that they're kind of venturing out into the neighborhood too, and giving more there because, as he was saying, it's reflective of the parish. The parish is reflective of the neighborhood too. So.
Exactly, and whatever it is that's important to them, whether it's you know, any kind of architecture or adornment, anything like that, and also they're really community centers too. Yeah. So the history of whatever you know, happens with that population will be reflected in, you know, what goes on over there. So nice show. Watch the net. It is all good TV.
And tell your mom to stream it from Boston as well.
She's in love with it.
And it's City of Churches. Mom, it's City of Churches. It airs right after Currents on Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. You can check out more by visiting the website netny.net. Now, tomorrow night, I'll be talking with the 2 people who are breaking ground and breaking bread as well. And you won't want to miss that. I get to talk about food.
That's right. I know, that's true. And Mom's actually coming to visit on Sunday, so I'll send her off on a little tour of Brooklyn's churches.
See, there you go. Perfect.
All right. Well, meantime, stay with us. We'll be right back.
When we return, they fasted for 72 hours. We'll pay another visit to these New Yorkers dedicated to immigration reform.
We as a city will make sure that we're not participating in a broken immigration system.
Well, finally tonight, an update on a story we first brought you last week. You'll remember that we took you to Lower Manhattan as a number of religious groups from different faith traditions embarked on a 72-hour fast on behalf of immigration reform.
Well, that fast concluded on Saturday, and our cameras were there at the Judson Memorial Church, which hosted the event.
At the end of this fast, where we are right now, everyone's talking about what are the next steps. I'm trying to ceremonialize the end of this in some way, but everyone is so ready to keep moving, and so it has been such an honor and an inspiration. As a clergy member, one of the things we really see particularly harsh on the ground reality that doesn't seem to make it to news a lot of the times is the fallout of the detention system and the enforcement system. This is done with so little oversight and such a lack of a broader vision for what it does to our communities. Judson Church wanted to host everyone here in the fast who wanted to stay because our fundamental belief of what church is and what sanctuary is, to give protection and voice and empowerment to people who have none in any other way. And you were really seeing a camaraderie here, and it's reflected with the conversations we're having nationally.
And this morning in community we've prepared a soup which we will take part in after we break the fast with a significant breaking of the bread. And we're all, I think, looking forward to it.
With our fasting, we represent thousands upon thousands of people who have disappeared from our communities. So as we break the fast, we remember those who are not with us, those who are present to us very much in our hearts, and who urge us to change a system that excludes, a system that divides, a criminal system that terrorizes our families and our friends.
We have a big commitment, which is to speak loud and clear from California to New York that we are against SB 1070 because this law is based on racial profile. If I will be going to Arizona, I will be stopped because of my color, because of my accent in this language.
So I'm here now to stand with everyone and the immigrants and to make sure that anybody, regardless of the color of their skin, can have a safe and secure stay in America as they provide the skill set and the taxes that they have been providing. I no hablo español, but I can say that immigration policy is mucho, mucho malo.
I think I leave today feeling much more clear about my role in the movement. I think at the city level we have many opportunities to promote legislation and promote policies that respond to the lack of action from the federal government. We as New York City will make sure that immigrants do not end up in deportation procedures. We as a city will make sure that we're not participating in a broken immigration system. And I think in the same way that that's possible in New York City, it is possible in other parts of the country.
Yeah, that's really some powerful message there, and certainly something that they were willing to sacrifice for to get out with that fast. Not something that people do so much anymore, but definitely a way of getting your point across.
Definitely, yes, and a unique way of doing it here. I mean, you saw all the TV cameras, you know, I mean, it really got people's attention, and that's what they're trying to do there because they're obviously very passionate about, you know, immigration reform in this country and saying, well, the system is broken. We need to fix it. Let's come together and talk about how to fix it, you know?
Right. Well, when you talk about the dignity of the person and that you know, is sort of the goal to respect that dignity, you know, when people are really sort of sacrificing themselves in this kind of a fast. I mean, we live in such a world of abundance in so many respects. Right. There's so much waste in America, especially, and yet there are so many people that don't have a lot. It's a real reminder of those who aren't as fortunate and for their rights as well. Well, that is it for tonight. Coming up tomorrow, a new play offers a powerful dramatic look at genocide. We'll talk to some of those involved in bringing this story to life. Meantime, remember, you can always watch us online at currentsny.net. You can also check out our Facebook page as well. We have new updates there all the time.
Absolutely. Until next time, I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime. Thanks so much for joining us, and have a great night.